A very good morning to all of you. Welcome to today's news analysis. We are doing the Indian Express Papers Chandigarh edition, and today is 22nd of December 2023. I have already shared the handwritten notes of today's news analysis so that you may refer to for the topics that we are doing. Plus, you wanted important facts, so that I'm sharing over there. Now, let's quickly get done with today's news analysis. So the first news is from the international section, and we hear about steps being taken to normalize ties between USA and China. Previously, when the Asia Pacific Economic Corridor APEC summit was taking place in California, so we saw the meeting of the two leaders, President Biden and Xi Jinping. Now we hear about the meetings to be taking place at military level. So an attempt to normalize relationship. The relationship has gone bad over the years, over series of controversies. For example, uh, the South China Sea issue. Then with regards to the detection of a Chinese spy balloon on USA and USA firing a missile on that. So number of issues. Chinese taking series of steps to take up technology from the US. They have this 1,000 talents program, and US restricting that. So a lot of things are taking place. Now, why normalization of relationship? US wants this to take place. Normalization, it is not good for the two superpowers to uh, under the tense environment. And besides, there is a step down from the Chinese side because China is apparently facing some economic hardships. Politically, also, there are some issues at the party level for Xi Jinping. So, probably that is the reason why a bit of backtracking from China is also seen over here. Okay. And China, US is also has a crackdown on the exports, especially exports of the critical technologies. Moving on, we come to the next news. We hear about violence taking place at Prague Varsity. 15 killed, 24 injured in mass shooting. Okay. Post the Syrian crisis, giving you a background, post Syrian crisis, Germany said that they had vacancy for 2 lakh migrants. Right. They gave a proper this thing. It was welcoming of the migrants, and from there on, we are seeing more spurt of violence is taking place. Now, as far as exam goes, so one theme that we can see is that this violence is going to create a reaction against refugees and the migrants coming into Europe. That is one obvious thing. Second, that I can see is with regards to the nature of attack. Although we don't hear about the Islamic State, but this attack that has taken place is quite reminiscent of Islamic State sponsored attack, which is typically known as the lone wolf attack. And as far as the exam goes, I would like to draw your attention to this issue. We don't know if it is ISIS, if it is lone wolf, but the nature is such. Now, the typical cycle of a lone wolf attack is hate speech or some issue previously, hate speech leading to radicalization. Radicalized people are then targeted by Islamic State or whichever agency they are targeted. They are given a toolkit, and these people alone, stand alone, whatever means they have, they inflict violence, as we saw over here. So, hate speech or some precondition is there because of which there is discontent. Uh, Putting more of messaging of that thing so that the people are radicalized, people are angered, and then attack. Okay, so that's it actually. South Korea and Japan, something to do with World War. A Japanese company known as Nippo and some other companies were not hiring, were using forced labor. So South Koreans were used as forced labor. So the South Korean court has given a verdict against the Japanese company, and they say that relations may get hampered. Okay. From art and culture point of view, not Indian, but Italian. So unearthed frescoes. So you can see what a fresco is over here. You can get an idea. So frescoes, have been detected from the ancient site of Pompeii. And based on that, they want to revive the ancient textile of Pompeii. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it right. So, what is Pompeii? So, Pompeii is the name of the ancient civilization of Italy during the time period of roughly 79 AD. If you want to take an Indian context, the time of Kushanas. Okay, so that time period. So there was this flourishing civilization at that time. In fact, they used to trade with India. Roman trade used to take place. A volcano took place, and the entire city was washed out, killed. Right? I don't know, killed. Not everybody. I don't know, but yeah, entire thing was washed out. Now recovery is being done, and they have found this frescoes, and based on that, they want to promote the textiles of this area. So some of the colors that they can figure out, for example, this famous red color, which is coming from rose ship, which is made of a soft pink. Right. So this is there. Some other colors, purple, green, pinks, blues, yellows, etc. So fresco is the key word over here. In fact, your 11th NCRT plus, I think even 7th NCRT has a reference of frescoes and art and culture also. NCRTs are actually a better way of studying art and culture because it ancient medieval is there, of course, history is there, but it also gives a reference of contemporary art. Okay, now we come to the actual front page. Jammu and Kashmir, Rajouri area, terror strike has taken place. Sadly, 4 soldiers killed, right? 3 injured in ambush. So that is there. Some issue with regards to the Punjab drug crisis. The Aam Aadmi Party is saying that because of their awareness and crackdown, the things have been reduced, the issue of drug. Awareness and crackdown. Now, if you're looking at, let's say, a question on drug policy, the need for a drug policy or something like that. So typically we have seen the governments have been focusing on crackdown on the supply, arresting people, crackdown on drug peddlers, or the politicians saying, why don't you go after the big fish? Supply side issues. But we also have to look at the demand side of things. For that, we have to create awareness and de-addiction. So after de-addiction, of course, people should not go for demanding drugs. And of course, economic situation should also improve. Economic situation, sports, etc. So that also comes into it. So awareness and crackdown is somewhere positive in the sense, focus on demand. The issue now, as far as I think from the police data it is coming, is more women are being booked. And most of these women are married and from the rural background. Right? So that is coming up. So yeah, so this is being seen over here. One of the reasons could be when the drug raids take place, the men flee, drugs are found in the possession of the women. So that is there. Then we also see that actually drug peddling taking place from the women. Now, one of the side effects of this is that it is leading to hampering the family, broken families. Woman is the core of the family. Woman is taken. Children are separated from their mother. Right. So that way, it is leading to broken families. Now, very interesting views coming from the chief economic advisor. Right. Very important. His views have to be respected. So there are two actually. So there is one on the first page and the second page, which regards to the rating agencies, credit rating agencies. And the second one seems to be of particular importance from mains perspective. You have studied this topic also on economic development if you have studied, went to coaching or something, or you studied this Ramesh thing, etc. So the theme of income growth, right? The growth strategy or the development strategy that should be there. He's saying income growth should be prioritized over redistribution. Okay, so let me focus on this first, then we'll come to this issue. This is actually given in the economy section, but I want to cover it here itself. In fact, this has not been elaborated also. Okay. So he says, the author, the chief economic advisor is saying that we need to prioritize economic growth over the popular view of income redistribution. Income redistribution means there is income inequality, there is a class of rich, there are of course poor people who need support, taxing the rich, giving money out to the poor in terms of cash transfer, subsidy, etc. This concept is also known as the economic justice, right? Economic justice, social justice, so that to be done. Okay. So that's a view, especially post 1970s. So pre 1970s, the approach was that of trickle down effect, trickle down economy, whatever. The idea is that you promote industries, you promote growth, industries are there, more GDP is coming up. More GDP would mean that uh, more need for labor, so more jobs are created. More jobs means more families get money, income, right? And thereby they have the resources to invest in their family and their upliftment takes place. That is one strategy of development. Then the counter was that this approach has been going on for so many years. We see income inequality rising. These people, capitalists, keep getting richer while these keep getting poorer. So income inequality is increasing day by day. So the idea was that the state should be more proactive and redistribution takes place. Further, you must have heard about Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize winner, and Mehboob ul Haq. They proposed the capability based approach to development. They say that we need to invest at the lower level, improve their capabilities so that they can take care of themselves, and thereby automatically the GDP growth will take place. So that again some stems from economic justice and redistribution of income. Right. So the economic advisor is contrary to this viewpoint. Economic growth should be prioritized over redistribution. That's his viewpoint. It's not been elaborated further. All we can understand is that with economic growth prioritized, right? If you have to do redistribution, then you are taxing more. You're making the Indian economy unattractive. Plus, we want foreign companies to come invest in India. So those things also get compromised as a result of this. Maybe that is what the thinking is behind it. But this is a very, very important theme from Main's point of view, GS3. Now coming to credit rating agencies. So you must have heard about Moody's and all these credit rating agencies. So he says that the credit rating of India is more or less BBB negative. BBB negative over the years, last 15 years, despite the fact that since 2008 to 2023, India's jumped from the 12th largest to 5th largest. So how is this that this rating has not changed? BBB negative, it should have become positive at least. And India is actually on the path to, I think 2027, India is on the path to become the third largest economy. How is it? He says that these rating agencies are biased. They are biased. They need improvement. And they are dominated by the Western view, the views of the global West, the global North. So that views are there. They are referring to the governance indicators. They are borrowing the World Bank data rather than checking the on-ground realities. So that is the problem that the author has highlighted. He says the better approach would be what are these credit rating agencies? Anybody has invested money into India, is credit worthiness to pay back. That is as simple as that. So why not have simple indicators of debt to GDP ratio and repayment history? Because likeliness of payment is based on the past experience. If India has been making up the payments, then of course India should be rated positively. So he's proposing debt to GDP ratio versus and repayment history. That's it about actually. And further, I think the India is also looking at having indigenous credit rating norms. That also we are working on it. Okay. Now, one thing about debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio in India is 81%. Right? 81%. This is way above what NK Singh committee had recommended, which was at 60%. And this is a fairly recent, but this is pre-pandemic. Post-pandemic, this actually went up. But again, we should look at bringing this down. Debt to GDP ratio. High debt to GDP also means that we are borrowing more. And the good thing or the positive thing could be that we are borrowing more, but we are actually focusing on capital expenditure. So the capacity of the GDP, the capacity of the economy to grow further will increase as a result of this. More highways, more bridges, so more prospects for the economy. Ultimately, we will get dividends. So that's it actually. Amit Shah is coming to our city, so news flooded with that. That's it. Bulk of the heavy lifting from the news is done. Yeah. Now we come to the UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards. First time I'm hearing about this UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards. So of course, Asia Pacific countries are there. In India, there are 3 sites that have got an award for UNESCO Asia Pacific Awards. These are in Amritsar, Rambagh Gate. You can see over here, Rambagh Gate. Then Church of Epiphany in Gurugram and People Haveli in Gurdaspur. The reasons for awarding, the basic thing is that they have been able to diligently restore and conserve the ancestral property. Restore and conservation of ancestral property, conservation, protection of our heritage, etc. Okay. Now, the award is categorized into, I don't know, 2 or 3 because only 2 names are mentioned. So Rambagh has gotten the higher award, which is Award of Excellence, while Church of Epiphany has gotten the Award of Merit. Gurdaspur, we have People Haveli is not mentioned over here, right? So they have at least they have Award of Excellence and Award of Merit. Now over here, if you look closely, there is a mention of a local initiative, which is People Haveli supports women empowerment through initiatives like Bari Collective. Bari Collective. So it's associated with which of the following? This must be famous, of course, this initiative. So it strengthens women's livelihood via environmentally conscious craft practices. It promotes craft basically. That is the main theme. And so though these are showcased over here, simple as that. India's relations with US on upward trajectory. Lot of things are there, right? So the issue of the recent issue of the possible assassination plot of a US citizen, which happens to be a Khalistani separatist, he says that it is not going to affect, and rightfully so, because we have deeply entrenched US India relationships, mainly pivoting around the Asia of pivot to Asia of this thing, US, right? Encircling China, etc. Okay, so that's it. That makes sense. Now, overall, this theme, India's relations with US, is very, very important. Very important. So one is, of course, we normally go with that. Yes, the relation is deeply entrenched. You know what UPSC asked? There is a growing mistrust between India and USA in the recent times because US has not been able to acknowledge India's rightful place in the world order, the global order. Now we don't anticipate that, right? We always think from this perspective, but this question was asked. We need to prepare from those point of view also. So not from the conventional, but the unconventional view also needs to be taken into account. So if you can do this and do this, I think there is no other way, at least as of now, which question may be asked. So all you have to do is go by the previous years, solve them. Read the answers and then solve them. Now we come to the editorial page. So one is the IMF's message. If you remember yesterday's news analysis, now more clarity is there on this topic. So long story cut short, IMF has basically raised the concern. It says in a recent report, it says that India's currency, Indian currency rupee, I should have just written rupee actually. So rupee remained stable despite the currency volatility across the world. So more or less it remained stable, Indian currency. So this it says it's because more likely because some intervention was made, and in India's case it is done by the RBI. So some intervention was made so that the currency remains stable. So market forces was not determining the currency correction. Money was flowing out from the economy, but the currency was remaining stable. In fact, even if you look now, it is 83, right? Crude price is falling, it's again increasing, but yes. So that's what. So the IMF recommends that the ideal approach should be that flexible currency should be there, which Indian government also says that they have a flexible currency regime. And they should act as a shock absorber. Okay. So that's it. So that is one thing that they have pointed out. And the other thing they have pointed out is the high debt to GDP ratio, which it was 81% in 2005, 2006, 84% in 2021-22, now again 81%. It's very high. NK Singh committee recommended 60% of debt to GDP ratio. So these two concerns have been expressed. RBI says that we are not doing anything, right? It is purely driven by the market forces. That's what the RBI is saying. So it is on the basis of floating, that is, we are not making changes. But yes, from time to time, we may intervene if the currency instability is very, very rash. So that we may do. More or less, the rupee is market determined. There was no explicit, implicit target band. Second thing, debt to GDP ratio is actually very high. The Indian response to defend it. So they are saying that, see, uh, the main source of debt is domestic currency, denomination in domestic currency. We have not borrowed much from outside. It's in domestic currency, and thereby the risk is muted. Right? The risk remains low because it is based on domestic currency, not to the foreign currency. You can take the example of Sri Lanka in that case. Sri Lanka debt to GDP was mainly fueling from the foreign currency, and you saw what happened. Okay. Now, why debt to GDP is, of course, is important because, of course, you're running your economy based on your debt. More and more of borrowing is taking place. Ultimately, the government has to borrow more interest payments. So all those things are not good. Uh, Next is on menstrual leave. I didn't want to do this mainly from exam point of view, but since this article actually talks about normalizing menstruation and invisibilizing the experience, so I think we should do it. And in any case, we should not take a call on this issue. Anything can be asked. This is GS1. The issues, roles or role of women, the issues faced by the women, GS1. Okay. So that debate was going on with regards to period leaves. Right? Menstruation, period leaves should take place. Smriti Irani said there is no need, the Minister for Women and Child, that there is no need for period leaves. It's up, that's because, so this, there is no need. If there is this thing, if the separate leave is there, one of the reasons was that if there is there, then it may actually lead to discrimination against the woman. I can tell you, when regards to marriage, when you go become 21, 22, you go for a job, the marriage question may be asked to you in the interview. Then maternity issue is one of the other concerns after marriage. But you tend to change the job at that time or whatever reasons, maternity. So this may further lead to discrimination. We are already concerned with low female labor force participation, all those things. The authors over here says that we need to normalize the menstrual talk. We need to right. So this thing we should be normalizing. This discrimination has been taking place for a very long time, and this should be normalized. Further, we should not generalize that a certain person does not feel the pain or it's very less minimal. Some people may be very severe and they do need support. And even in the case if there is a leave, there is an argument that if there is a leave, women may likely to misuse that even if they don't need that. So it says that women at home, the more burden is actually more, so they may actually like to come to the office only. And 25% of India is silenced, and I think we don't have to discuss this further. This is with regards to the parliament. Innovation Atmanirbhar IIT Kharagpur. So the director of IIT Kharagpur is actually writing it. I was hoping more on science and tech over here, but this is from an IIT perspective, what they're doing, etc. It's more of an essay. We skip it. Coming to the national routine news that is there. So yeah, so there are two things if you note over here, this and this. So let's cover the first one. This is with the 1st January, we are expecting ISRO to launch a satellite, a space observatory satellite, which is known as ExposSat. ExposSat. So X, I don't know what it is, but PO is polarimeter. It will be used to refer to the X-rays, X-ray emissions that are there in the space. So first, polarimetry mission ExposSat would be done on 1st of Jan. So this will be the third space-based observatory. So one was Aditya L1 for the sun, Lagrange 1 point, L1 denotes the position. AstroSat, which is at 650 kilometers, the orbit is 650 kilometers from the Earth. AstroSat. And now we have ExposSat. ExposSat will have two sensors or two payloads. So one is Pollux and other is Expect. Pollux is described over here. It is polarimeter instrument in X-rays. It is designed to make observations in 8 to 30 keV. Right, so that is there. So it will observe X-rays basically in the space, and based on the observation of X-ray emissions, it will be able to derive the source of the X-ray visions also. And the other one is Expect, which is spectroscopy, an observation method that studies electromagnetic spectrum. Right, the white light has spectrum, different components of light, that thing, visible spectrum, non-visible spectrum, all those things. Coming to the economy section now. Oil at 76, from 76, 77, it has jumped to $79 per barrel. It is increasing. What could be the reason? The reason could be the supply lines have been disrupted because of the violence taking place along the Red Sea region. The route has been hampered. We were expecting 20 to 25% of price rise. Freight cost is increasing. That is one reason. The unsaid reason could be OPEC Plus, led by Russia and Saudi. They were looking at supply side cuts of crude prices. That can also be a reason. So these two parameters are there. Next. Center considers compensation for exporters hit by UK EU carbon tax. Sometime back, European Union came up with the idea of carbon border adjustment mechanism. Carbon border adjustment mechanism. Basic logic is simple. EU is focusing on sustainability, clean manufacturing, so less pollution. So of course, the cost of manufacturing goes up. And if we compare it with, let's say, China, India, the production is taking place where environment-related regulations are less, emission norms are weaker as compared to EU. So the cost of production is cheaper over here as compared to the EU, because there is a compliance cost. So to correct that, when a thing crosses the border of EU, so carbon tax should be levied. Now this has affected the iron industry, the steel and the aluminium exports to the tune of $8 to $9 billion. Okay, so that is there, and many others also. Indian side said, okay, fine, you want to do it, you do it, but at least focus, you should have a discriminatory policy with regards to MSMEs, which needs greater support. It supports the livelihood of so many people. You focus on that. You don't put that tax on that. They said nothing doing. So what the government response is now that one is subsidy support to be given to iron, steel, aluminiums to make them competent price-wise. Center considers compensation for exporters, so that is subsidy. Second thing is they have approached the World Trade Organization. They are saying, Indian side is saying that this CBAM is the violation of special and differentiated SNDT, special and differential treatment. The idea is that when you have these regulations, right, longer time period should be given for other countries to comply with, because otherwise they will not be able to comply, they'll not be price competitive. So the trade is hampered. It's a barrier to the trade. It's an unfair practice. So on one ground, further they are saying that it is violation of CBAM is violation of the international environment law, climate change law, which goes by the principle of common but differentiated responsibilities with relative capabilities. That's a violation. So they have gone to the WTO on these counts. Okay. Yeah. So basmati rice exports have been affected. Then should prioritize income growth over redistribution. Yes, we do get a fact over here. 13.5 crore people have been pulled out of poverty. China bans export of tech to process rare earth minerals. Now imagine the ethicality over here. The US, when US is banning export of critical exports to China, they are protesting, but China bans export of tech to process rare earth minerals. China has monopoly over 90% of the global refined output for the rare earths. So they want to ensure monopoly. So tomorrow they have any tension with any country, they will stop the supply of rare earths. That is why all the semiconductor alliances, etc., are coming up. Japan and China has this border issue. They protested. China stopped the supply of this rare earths. So that's how critical it is. Now, what is rare earths? They are a class of 17 metals used to make. I'm not sure it is metals. I think it is beyond that. Anyways, rare earths are a group of 17 metals used to make magnets for use in electric vehicles